Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Jump scare. I quite literally got bloodshot eyes from reading so much, and this is better. This is like day 3 or 4, and I'm noticing as I sleep more, it gets better. I don't think it has anything to do with my contacts with my makeup because it doesn't itch. It's not getting irritated whatsoever. I think it's just literally the fact that I've been straining my eyes at like 3 in the morning. The other day, I stayed up till like 5 in the morning reading From Blood and Ash or something. And I just know for a fact, because the particular week preceding this incident, I was staying up super late, and I knew that sometimes I didn't always adjust the warmth or the brightness accordingly, and I knew this was a result of that. So don't worry about me. It is getting better. It will go away. If it didn't get any better, I would have probably gone to the eye doctor, but I know my eyes very well. I have eye problems and this has never happened before. So it just made sense, the cause and effect there. But in today's video, I want to talk about Fourth Wing. I know that everybody's already talked about this book. Like, I am so late to the train. The train didn't even pick me up. So here I am with this video. And let's just get into it, you guys. So where do I start? The writing. I actually talked about Fourth Wing a little bit at the very end of my last video. So if you guys tuned in that far, you would have remembered that I said I had to DNF it. Like, I didn't even technically DNF it. It's just I was reading the sample and I wasn't feeling it. Because of the immature writing. Because in the beginning of the book, she's like talking to her mom, to her sister. And I just wasn't sure about the vibes, like, and just some of her inner monologue. You know, Rebecca Yarros does this thing in that book where she does one word period. So period, effing period, hot, or something like that. And you know, there's just certain immature things that she says, and she cusses a lot where I feel like it's kind of unnecessary. Not a lot, because as I read the full book, I don't even feel like the cussing was that much, to be honest. So I will say, I heard other people say this, and now that I've finished the book, I can 100% stand behind it, that if you were kind of turned off by the prose, if you didn't like that stuff, I will say it doesn't go away. Like, especially the one word period, it's for dramatic effect. I don't know. And sometimes it makes sense. Like, you know, oh, that's the way they're saying it. But usually it's just in her inner dialogue or inner monologue, and it just sounds a little bit silly, a little bit dramatic, but it's not that much of the book to annoy me. In fact, I kind of grew fond of it. I don't know, like, it's kind of her thing now, so it's kind of funny. It's just Rebecca Yarros' thing. I didn't love it when I first read it. It kind of turned me off. I was like, is the whole book going to be like this? Is everything about this going to be immature? No. I felt like the world, the politics, the magic, all of it, I felt like all of it made sense. All of it was very well explained. I kind of want to compare it to From Blood and Ash in that regard, to where I still feel that Jennifer L. Armentrout has made the world very confusing for me. Like, just, it's very confusing. I'm not entirely sure I understand the politics. Some of it is super straightforward, and then it's not even that it's straightforward. It's just some of the things just don't make sense, or you have to kind of reread. You got to study to really understand that. I feel like, you know what I mean? If somebody were to ask me about it, quiz me about it, I probably wouldn't do very well. But if you were to quiz me about Navarre and, well, okay, let me not go that far. There's a lot going on, especially I did start Iron Flame. I don't want to talk too much about Iron Flame, but I will talk about Fourth Wing in this video. I do think that Rebecca makes it easy to understand, and yes. So I want to talk, I already talked about the writing. I think other than that, I wanted to say that she is very detailed in the world building. She's detailed describing the magic and the differences. And I actually don't even find it boring. I don't find it confusing. It just is enjoyable to read. And I'm just so curious to know more, and knowing that there's still secrets out there and there's still unknowns out there, but it doesn't feel, you know, forgotten about. It's just something that, oh, I know we don't know this right now. Like, even Xaden, well, he's keeping a ton of secrets, but even Xaden is finding out things from Violet herself, because, you know, she spends her time, or she was training to be a scribe for a while, and that's like her thing. I just love that aspect of how everything is just tying in beautifully. Just that part in the beginning of Fourth Wing, that she was supposed to be a scribe, and everything about her body and her physique, and everybody doubted her, and nothing about her being a writer made sense, but it actually is her destiny. But the fact that she has that scribe experience and that passion and that interest in that as well has also proven to be an asset, and I love that too. So, okay, I think we can move on to the plot. So I will say, I love the beginning of these types of books where they're competing, you know, it's training or an entrance exam, you know what I mean? Or like their first year, like I like it, but then I also have problems with it sometimes, you know what I mean? Because you got to meet everybody, you got to lay the groundwork. And I feel as though that can be really boring if done incorrectly, right? I think what's so important is making the characters likable, interesting, and also different enough from each other that I can follow it, that I can get invested. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like all of these students, first of all, I love all of them. I don't think there's a single one I don't like. Even the ones, I'm reading Iron Flame right now, so I don't want to get to it, but like, well, actually, let me reverse. Obviously, I don't love Jack. Obviously, I don't love, you know, some of the people who tried to K-word Violet and all of that. I'm just talking about, you know, the friends in the group, like Imogen, Rydok, Liam. There's going to be spoilers in this video, by the way, you guys. I shouldn't have to say it, but I probably have it in the title. I just want to make that clear. Bodhi, like, do you know what I mean? Rhiannon, how could I forget to say Rhiannon? Is that even how you pronounce her name? Like, I love these kids. They're not kids. I love these people. I love Violet. I love Xaden. Obviously, I will get to Xaden. But they're just so identifiable, not only with their personalities, which is the most important part, but they're very diverse. I love that we have a non-binary character. I love that there's a lot of diversity racially. Like, I really do love to see that, just having different types of people from different walks of life. Although that's not really talked about. It's not talked about in depth, because why? Sometimes that doesn't really need to be discussed. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, for example, okay, I want to talk about this, how Rhiannon, I think, is bisexual, like, unless I got confused, because there are a lot of students, but I know Rhi was hooking up with Tara, but then Rhi also shows an interest in men as well. Pretty sure is like hooked up with men, if I'm not mistaken. So I really like that that's not been analyzed, like, oh, what was it like coming out to your parents? Or like, you know, not that that's not an important subject matter, but I like how in this book, it just seems like this is just part of who they are, and it's just a non-issue. It's not like, you don't go asking straight people like, when did you come out to your parents? Or like, oh, like, what is it like being straight? You know what I mean? Like, everything just seems normalized. Like the fact that Heaton is non-binary, that's not discussed. That's not a thing. You know what I mean? And I actually do appreciate that. I feel like that's my favorite form of representation. I would love to see those things talked about, because there is such a place for that, and there's place for debates and discussions and all of that. But I really like to see representation in a way to where that's not the personality trait. Like, oh, Rhi's entire personality isn't about being bisexual. It's just as normal as anything else, right? So I love to see that. I do. And I guess I was saying the same thing about race. They don't really talk or discuss about race, which I guess the topic could be explored, but also the author is a white woman, not saying that she couldn't talk about race, I guess, in certain ways, but I just like that the diversity is there. Clearly, I think, because Yaros wants a diverse cast of members. Like, it doesn't seem to be for points, or, you know what I mean? Like, not to have just like the side black best friend and she has no substance to her. We don't learn anything about her. I will say, like, Rhiannon took a backseat several times because Violet is the main character, of course, but I know so many things about Rhiannon, and she's, I don't want to say like a fully fleshed out character, because that's hard to say. I just feel like we know the most about Violet and Xaden because they are the mains, like, right? So, but I do think that justice was done to the side characters just in general. I really would like to hear more from them. And right now, well, I can't talk about Iron Flame because I'll probably just make that its own video. I haven't even finished it. So I really appreciate that. I feel like it was done well. the characters and the representation and the diversity. And most of all, like I said, I love the personality differences between all of them, because it's easier to differentiate them and easier to love all of them because we have that context. Of course, we could always know more, but then we're going into a tangent about like, how long is the book gonna be, right? So maybe they could have a spin-off if we want to go really in depth about every side character's life. Okay, now on to the plot, I guess we could say. I love it. Like I said, sometimes these books where we're learning about all these new characters, this entire new world, this entire new college, like all the dynamics, it can be very overwhelming, and it can be hard to pull off. Sometimes I feel like these first books, or just whatever it is, can be boring for me personally, but I was very engaged. There were some moments where I felt like the pacing got slower, but it wasn't bad at all. I felt like, oh, I will say I don't like how long the chapters are. Like, this is just an issue I have with books in general. Like, please stop with the 30-minute long chapters. Like, I promise you, if you make every chapter, 10 minutes is kind of short, but if you make every chapter 20 minutes or less, preferably like right at that 19 or less, I'm gonna read so much faster. I don't know if anybody else feels the same way, but I also find it kind of ridiculous, like mid-chapter, there will just be a break. And I'm like, you really could have started a new chapter. Sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes it makes sense. If it makes sense, like it's the next day or whatever, like something really shifted and there's only 5 minutes left, so there's no need to make a whole new chapter. But that's just a complaint I have, because there have been several times with this book, in Iron Flame 2, where the chapter is 30 minutes long. At least to me, it's 30 minutes long, because my Kindle accommodates or switches up based on my reading speed, which I actually think I read really fast. Okay, maybe I don't. Maybe y'all are like, what are you talking about? Like, mine say 20 minutes left. No, because I can't read that fast. Like, I could physically read that fast, but then I wouldn't be retaining anything. What I'm talking about is, I lost my train of thought. What I was talking about is the amount of time it takes me to read is relatively quick while still being able to retain the information. And I still find myself seeing 30 minutes left in the chapter. And I'm like, there's been several times I've put the book down, even though I don't want to. Do you know what I mean? It's just like a personal thing, because I would continue reading if it said something less. And it doesn't matter. Like, I'm just going on about nonsense. It's just something personal to me. Anyone else? Like, whatever happened to the 15 to 19 minute chapters? I don't know. So that's something I will say. Back to the plot at hand. I think that there were very little moments where I was bored. I do think that there was a lot of romance, which I love. I don't want an 80-20, like 80% fantasy, 20% romance. I would prefer maybe like 70-30. Maybe even more, but I do think it was pretty heavy on the romance, like almost to the point where I was like, oh, we're really kind of focusing on this a lot, which I love, don't get me wrong, but I was just a little bit surprised, because I was thinking, you know, we're kind of nearing the end here, and then I felt like something was kind of rushed with Violet and Xaden, where I don't want to say they broke up, but they were like having a moment where they weren't speaking, or like things were kind of off between them. And then literally the next chapter, or like 2 chapters later, they reconciled, and then he like said all the perfect things. Y'all know what I'm talking about, because Xaden was being an F-boy. He was in his F-boy era, and he was pushing her away and not admitting his feelings. And then 2 chapters later, he gave in, which for me, it didn't give realism. Listen, I know we're talking about fantasy, but it was just not realistic. Like, and like, I want the fantasy, okay? I want the fantasy, but just not that quickly. Just because I think for men in this kind of mindset, it's very hard to kind of break those shackles in their brain, like to let someone in, to confront their feelings, to get out of that compartmentalization. And I thought his turnaround was so quick. And again, I understand the fantasy. Listen, I expected it to be unrealistic in the sense that he was going to fall for her, period. Like, I expected him to fall for her. Don't get me wrong. I think that that's unrealistic. I think men like this. And let me say, for a while there, I wasn't sure Xaden had genuine intentions. Although he was doing those super sweet things for her, let me tell you, some guys will do that. Some guys will do really nice things for you. This is a lesson to all you young girls. They will do really nice things for you, thoughtful things. Like, you think that they like you, but if a man has commitment issues, it doesn't really matter. Like, at the end of the day, if he's not ready to take that risk, he won't, even if he likes you so much. Like, and I think that this is a newer generation thing, like literally starting in my generation, even now. Listen, I know we're not in our world, we're in this world, but I'm just talking about it because in my opinion, I do like some things to be realistic, right? Like, when I say fantasy, of course I'm talking about magic. God, like, that's not going to be realistic. But when it comes to these dynamics, like, you're telling me like how much of a non-committal person he is, and then he switches up like 2 chapters later. Like, that's not making sense to me. Unless he had a come to Jesus moment, like something major happened, but nothing major happened, right? So, or like he has one conversation, not xaden, but just in general, like this trope of like he has one conversation with his homie, and I think actually Bodhi did say something to him, and then, oh, light bulb went off, like, oh, I can't lose this girl. Like, okay, but it doesn't happen like that. I just think it should have taken longer, okay? I'm not saying that the switch up should have never happened. That's what I'm saying. I am totally on board with the non-committal guy finally becoming committal, but it wouldn't happen that quickly, and it would have paid off a lot better had this realization come a little bit later, not just from one conversation, not just from one little, session with himself in his brain. But you know what? I think Rebecca felt rushed to do that because of kind of what happens in Iron Flame. So I'm not talking major spoilers, but so if you don't want to hear like anything about Iron Flame, then don't watch this. It didn't even come out that long ago. But I will say, like, their roles kind of swap. So then Violet becomes the non-committal one, but for different reasons. And xaden becomes the desperate one. So I feel like in order for that to have happened, like in order for him to be the pining one, and in order for her to be the cold one, he had to change his mind. He had to like completely switch his position. So I think since all this started happening at the end of the book, it was rushed, right? Because she had to put xaden on that side in order for the next book to make sense and for that dynamic to be laid out. I don't know, it's not a big deal. It's just something that I felt a little bit off about. So anyway, what else about this book? I mean, I didn't even really get into Liam dying. So I was very emotional. I don't think I cried right in that moment, but I started crying after it, and in Iron Flame. Oh, I definitely started feeling some type of way when he was giving the speech to Violet. And that just kind of crushed me because I was like, this dragon, what happened? They were jumping up on Deigh, and Deigh, I guess, couldn't do anything. And then I know that help came, but it came too late, and it felt so messed up. I know Rebecca said that was her intention from the beginning, like when Liam was introduced, she knew he was gonna die, but I just felt like, damn, like, I understand that anybody could die in the right circumstances, but I just felt like it was convenient, obviously, like he was meant to die, but I just felt like something could have been done. Like, what the heck? Like, I just didn't understand how the dragon lost that badly, essentially. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I was just kind of like, I mean, they put up a good fight. It wasn't like it just happened in 1 second, and then that kind of upset me. And I guess I always knew that the dragons and the riders were bonded, but it just sucks that, like, I'm not saying Deigh was a lame dragon by any means, but it just sucks, like, if your dragon is a flop and then just, like, ends up getting itself killed, like, the rider's gonna die too, and that just sucks. Like, I guess it's just how life is. Like, life isn't fair, same thing, but it's just, and that's the risk they take with the bond. So anyway, the forced proximity concept, I love. Like, I know Rebecca, I've been watching her interviews, if you can't tell. I know she was talking about how she knew that she wanted forced proximity, but in a specific way, like a unique way. And then that's why she came up with the dragon concept. And I liked it. I thought that's like a great way for the forced proximity. The more I think about it though, the more I'm kind of like, wait, so the sole purpose of Sgaeyl and Tairn meeting up is to do that? Like, I guess, but the more I think about it, the weirder it is. Like, I could see why people think that that's kind of weird. But in my head, I was just thinking, maybe it's deeper than that. It's not just about the sex, but it's just about the dragons need to be together just for more reasons than that. I'm sure they're not doing that the entire time. So it just kind of made sense to me. Just don't think about it too much. Just don't think about it too much. Okay. As for the concept being weird itself, that dragons can do that and dragons can talk. I mean, I feel like people are so hard on the book sometimes. I just want to say this. I feel like people are so hard on Fourth Wing and certain books all the time. Although I get it, because I like to hate on things that are too overhyped as well. But I just don't get it. Like, it's not that serious. Like, how many stupid, unrealistic concepts are in so many other popular books, so many other praised books? Like, I really do think that sometimes when something is overhyped, people want to tear it apart. I appreciate any critiques for sure. It's just something like, if people are going to criticize, oh, the dragon concept, that they need that forced proximity and that, oh, it's so convenient. Like, yeah, that's the book. Like, that's the plot. Like, the idea was that Violet and Xaden were these mortal enemies and they needed a reason to be forced into proximity. And then incorporating the dragons in it is just a creative way of doing it. Like I said, it's just, and then, I don't know if this was it ACOTAR? I don't know. There was this, I think it was in ACOTAR, there was this big giant worm that she needed to kill or fight off as one of the trials. I don't think it's much of a spoiler, okay? But just like people were kind of making fun of that and thinking how silly it is. Like, of course I love the memes, but like people who are actually criticizing that as, oh, that's so stupid. Like, I just think that there's silly things like that in Harry Potter. There's silly things like that in so many fantasies. Like, I just don't know what people want. What do you want? Like, I feel like I'm a tough critic and I'm always like quick to call things stupid, and honestly I have really strong opinions sometimes. Maybe they're unreasonable. I can be a hater for sure. It's just I'm not really getting it with Fourth Wing. I mean, the writing is immature in some parts. If you don't like Xaden, if you don't like Violet and Xaden, then I could understand not liking it, because that's a big part. Like I mentioned, it's a big part of book 1 and book 2. But I think book 2 I'm impressed. Again, it's like I love the romance and I want more of it. But like I told you guys, in book 1, I just didn't need everything to be resolved like that quickly or that many scenes. What am I even saying right now? I love romance. Like, I can't get enough. Like, whenever I'm reading the scene, I'm like, I don't want it to end. But it's just, you know, the logical part of my brain is like, okay, I know that this could have waited so it would have been a better payoff. Or I know that this was resolved too quickly. You know what I'm saying? And so anyway, what I was going to say is that I think book 2 is a lot more rational, or better boundaries are being put in place and stuff like that. Okay, I kind of got off track with the dragon thing. I did want to talk a little bit more about that. I didn't mind that they had sex. I know that I was reading something that some people had a problem with the fact that Tairn forgot to turn off his thoughts and that Violet was feeling his feelings and like seeing or hearing what he was doing. And I think people had a problem with that because something about consent. It's not that deep to me. It's just not, because I think he forgot, right? Like, I don't think that was intentional and he hasn't done it since. And that's just something that animals do, humans do. I know that she was like caught up in emotion. That's why Xaden wanted to kind of get her off of him. And I think that this has happened in so many books I've read. I think that happened in ACOTAR. I'm pretty sure it happened in From Blood and Ash. But I always love those scenes because it's like, you know, this might sound like weird. It's a gray area, right? Because like, we know these girls want these men, but it's because I'm only reading her inner monologue. Like the man doesn't actually know. And I really love and I really appreciate that the men always say no, tell him to go away. Like, I would love to do this, but I can't. Like, I really do like, even though I've seen it so many times already, it's always gonna hit for me when the woman is so caught up in lust. I love that, actually, whenever the woman is so thirsty, but the man is the one that has to say no because he knows that they can't do it. Like, that's kind of what's happening in Iron Flame right now. Okay, the dragons. I really like the banter. I do like Andarna. But I don't think I was as obsessed with her as some people are, but I do love that she's a cute little golden dragon. I love the whole story about why Violet defended her and the fact that Violet was the first one to get 2 dragons and then also the biggest, baddest dragon, but she's like this small girl. I love her. I really do. There was something I wanted to touch on that I can't remember right now, but ultimately, I loved the book. What can I say? I don't know what I was gonna say. I'm very excited for the next 3 to come out. I know that there's gonna be 5 and that Rebecca knows exactly how it's gonna end. And I can't wait. I know Iron Flame just came out, so I'm in a rush to finish it for sure, but it's like I don't want to finish it because then I have nothing. But I really want to go online and look at the memes already, but I know that I can't because I feel like I'm gonna get spoiled. So I know people have had their thoughts about Iron Flame, but I'm liking it so far. I really am. So we'll see how that goes. I hope I covered everything. I probably didn't, but I will have my links down below, specifically to my Goodreads if you want to add me on there, and I will catch you guys in my next video. I'll see you then. Bye.